G'day guys, Tails20 here and welcome back to Marble Mountain. In today's episode, I'm going to be checking out the Green Cities DLC. So this came out like 2-3 years ago and I'm only just downloading it now. I know, it's so late. I probably should have made like a video about this 2 years ago, but I've only just grabbed it because I'm pretty sure when this DLC came out, I was building in Springwood, which was based in the 80s. So the DLC really had nothing to do with what I was building at the time. So I've only just downloaded it because there was a whole bunch of sales on it. And I just thought, you know what? Why don't we just get it for Marble Mountain? Because I think it could relate pretty well with what I'm building. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about the DLC in this episode. Not too much because I know you guys know all about this DLC already, but I'm actually just like pretty excited about a whole bunch of the buildings with it. Like these are so nice. I've just placed down like a bunch of them just to like check out what this DLC is all about. And these are just so pretty. Guys, I know you already know all about these buildings, but I'm just really love them. I've got so many great ideas for what I'm going to do with these buildings. I can already hear you guys just typing away in the comment section. $2, we already know about these buildings. You're so late. I am so late to the party, but give me a break. My rule of thumb with DLCs is if they don't add anything to the build that I am doing, then I don't grab them. And these are just so great that I think we're going to be able to do some really fun things with them in Marble Mountain. So, okay, I'm not going to talk too much about the buildings because you guys already know all about them. What my idea behind this build is a couple of weeks ago I did a live stream where I built this area up and just spoke a bit about what I want to do with it. So the idea behind this area is I want this area to be like a pretty modern gentrified area of Marble Mountain. Bayview is where all like the big mansions are. There's some like really nice housing developments up here. We already have a couple of them. Like we've got some big old mansions around here. At the moment, this guy's like the biggest, but maybe not forever. Like we might get a couple of other bigger ones in there. He's got some problems going on in this place, but you know, we're not worried about that. So I'm going to be placing some mansions around here at some stage, not in this episode though. In this episode, I want to develop up this area. And this area, I kind of want it to be a bit of a gentrified area that has probably just only started booming in terms of you know, its niceness. With this rail line around here, I think there will probably still be a bit of industry like still around this spot because I think this would be a pretty noisy old area. But I also think that this would be a spot where a lot of the hipsters are starting to move into because you know, hipsters love trains and they also love the views, which this area really has pretty decent spot in terms of the views. So I think along here we'll probably have a bit of industry, and around this spot, around this main road, I think we'll probably put some of those like new as in like Marble Mountain new buildings like this, you know, like this soy lentil place, which I think is pretty damn cool. And there's also a couple of other buildings that I've just only grabbed because I've only just gotten the pack, but these Art Deco buildings that are also just like super nice. I'm going to place a couple of them around there too. So I think that's the plan for this episode, is sort of like just developing up this main road and a couple of the buildings around here. And this train line, I think we might work on this at another stage. But that is like the general idea for this area is, you know, building up a bit of the density and putting in some commercial as well as some houses as well, which I think will be around this area. And we'll save Bayview for another time, and we'll do the train line another time. We might do the bridge at some other time as well. I don't know. We'll see how we go. I don't want to say I'm going to do too much when I don't get to it. I also think I'm going to work on the intersection because I think this is going to see a fair bit of traffic when we connect it up to the bridge. And then we also connect it up to this area too that goes onto Copper Falls. So I think that's going to need a bit of work. So I think it's fine for now, but I'll detail it up. I might even add like a bit of a rampy thing over here. And I'm also thinking, so these guys, you guys have been complaining about these for a while. I mean, they're ugly. I've just been placing them down because we don't actually have a proper place where we, you know, we're getting rid of all our waste. So I think I might test out some of these guys. like they might actually, they're pretty much exactly the same thing, aren't they? God, Paradox got a bit, they got a little bit lazy with those buildings, didn't they? That's alright. I'll place them down. I might hide them off the map because they're not really the prettiest things and I don't really want them here. So I don't know, we might fix that up. And look, I dare say I'm going to check out some of the other things that come with the DLC. I know you guys have already known about this DLC for ages, but give me a break. I don't know anything about this, so I'm kind of excited. Okay, let's start building. So, in terms of what I ended up achieving in this episode, I ended up just focusing on detailing this intersection. I don't usually spend a lot of time working on the lines and the functionality of these intersections in Marble Mountain. I usually leave those sort of projects for other series that I have. However, I just felt like detailing this guy up. I figured it'd be a pretty prominent intersection in Marble Mountain, definitely in Montana. It's pretty like it's very evident where it is. And there's also a lot of stuff going on around here too. So there's also this whole interchange with the metro line, and there's like there's 3 main roads that meet together. So I figured we probably need to make this fairly decent. So I didn't end up expanding out huge amounts like I planned to, which I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I wanted to instead focus on getting like a bit more detail around here rather than just focusing on expanding. So what I am up to right now is I decided to keep it like the functionality of this intersection pretty basic. So pretty much all that's really, the only fancy stuff that's going on is there's this ramp that takes you basically bypassing the main junction of the intersection, and if you were going right, or if you're turning, no, I think it's, well, let's see, yeah, I end up changing the direction. Classic me, I have obviously put it in the wrong direction. No, this lane is for people who are wanting to go right towards the university, and it also leads to the downtown, and it also leads to the main highway that leads out of the city. So it's actually serves a pretty good purpose. I'm glad it doesn't face the other direction, to be honest. And you actually see a fair amount of cars using it, which is pretty good. And because I am using mostly vanilla roads, these roads in particular are vanilla, I had to just do some fixing up with the decals. So, just made the lines all join up, and I also removed a whole bunch of the crosswalks. I have always hated how every single intersection makes a crosswalk. Crosswalk? Yeah, crosswalk. Why does that sound so weird when it comes out of my mouth right now? But yeah, basically I don't like it. Don't like the pedestrian crossings. That's what I'm trying to say. I like it. I like being able to make my own. So using traffic precedence mod, of course, I can tell pedestrians to not walk over there, which is pretty good because it means that we have way more flow of the traffic, a better traffic flow. Again, that's what I'm trying to say. And I thought it would give me a good excuse to make a pedestrian overpass. So that's what you can see up there. It's pretty big. I decided to make both ends spirally rather than making it look like there's stairs, because I could probably download some stairs from the workshop, but once again, trying to keep things pretty minimal. So instead I just thought I'd just create like a bit of a spiral, so it's more of a ramp and not even bothering with stairs. And I'll actually cross it over to the other side too, so to go over to a park. So I wanted this area to be to look as if it's been like massively overhauled. So at some stage, I think it probably would have been of industry around this section, being somewhat out of the city. This area would have been a bit of an industrial hub, I think, and then it's probably been totally redone with the introduction of the metro, which is a fairly new thing in Montana, according to the wiki, and it is, it's something that I wanted to, look like they've done a massive, overhaul and turn this into a bit more of a like a hub for people and cafes. And you'll see I end up placing that whole bunch of the new for me, the new for the series, but not new for you guys. The Green City stuff, because there's a whole bunch of really cool cafes that come with that DLC. So I'll place down a whole bunch of them, like I guess like Whole Foods-esque types of buildings, and grocery stores and lentil shops and all that sort of stuff. So this area is fairly well off. It's a very affluent area of Marble Mountain, of Montana. So a lot of the houses that I'm going to build around here are going to represent that too. Lots of big mansions, much nicer looking houses and stuff. So I'm also trying to add a lot of parks and a lot of services and make it look like they've pumped a bit of money into this location. Something that I didn't really achieve, and I didn't, like now looking back at it, I wish I sort of put a bit more effort into it, but it would have been nice to have some older buildings as like a bit of a nod to the past that was probably in this area. So, that's something that I overlooked, and maybe I might come back and fix up a couple of areas. So it would have been cool to put some like warehouses that had some cafes underneath them, or factories that have been turned into art galleries, and those sort of places. Maybe I'm sort of thinking that sort of area will exist somewhere else in Marble Mountain, maybe even closer to the docks. I don't know, let me know. I think that'd be pretty cool to do something like that. Potentially, maybe an area like that will be over on the other side of the river, which we haven't really, we definitely haven't really worked over there just yet. But yeah, I just worked on a park that sits on the other side of the road, and in the middle of that intersection, I ended up creating like a bit of a garden area, and I really liked the way that turned out. I think the fence really helps to make it look like that whole area is a garden, removing the walking areas completely because nobody's going to walk around there, and yeah, it just worked out really well. So now I'm detailing around where the metro station is. So this is the terminal station for the metro. It's not going to go any further than this, so a fair bit of people are commuting in this area, which is awesome, and there's not even that many houses around here at this stage, so it's going to be pretty bustling when we do get a few more residential areas in this spot. So I decided that this area, like I said before, it has been completely revamped. This whole area would have been constructed at the same time, so I wanted everything to have the same sort of theme in terms of building style, which is quite helpful because we are now working with the Green Cities DLC, so it gave me a good excuse to like work just purely using those buildings, because they, as nice as the buildings are as part of the DLC, they are all extremely similar. So that is the only downfall I'm finding, is that when I first started looking at the building, it's like, oh man, these are very, very nice. I can use these all the time. And there's so many of them too. And then when I looked through all of them, they were pretty much the same building, just a little bit higher up, or, got a couple of extra props on them. So, it's probably not, they're not that versatile. They can only really fit in certain types of theming. And that's probably why I didn't really grab them when they first came out, because they, I do remember actually I had a bit of an inkling I felt like it was only sort of based around one particular style of building. I just built this custom car park. It is just purely props and for the detail. It's has no functionality at all, but I think it looks pretty nice in that corner there. I didn't really know what else to put there, but I think that worked well. Using those concrete networks, they just are so versatile, and I just made them as curbs. There are curbs on the workshop, but these, I think the networks work way better, so I use that instead. And just detailing a little bit of the backlots here. So we have a grocery store, we have a cafe, we have this lentil restaurant here too, and we've got these like storage containers, which is just creating like a bit of a funky bar. It's probably massively pretentious around here, to be honest, but I like it. We don't really have any other areas like this in Marble Mountain, so I'm kind of happy to create a couple of different environments within Montana. Just show that there's like a huge variety of different people who live in this area. But I guess probably in just this one spot, there's probably only one type of person lives around here. And I'm using these decals, which I don't really know how I feel about them now that I've placed them down. So you guys let me know whether I should change them for another one. There's not a huge variety of vanilla decals I can really use. The tiles I think are not that varied, unfortunately. There's one particular one that I use all the time, but I hardly ever use this blue one, so I thought I'd give it a crack. But I don't know if I regret it or not. I'm a bit impartial, so let me know what you think. The classic palm trees that line the metro line, I think that looks really cool. It looks great when the metro comes around here too. So we'll have to do some driving metro journeys at some stage. I think that'd be really nice, especially now that we're starting to detail up a lot more of these lines. We can, create some more of those driving videos. You just saw me create another cafe, so a whole bunch of different cafes and restaurants in this area. Like I said, it's quite a booming spot around here, so a lot of people are probably, coming in and out. So we need a lot of cafes and a lot of restaurants, and it just gives me a good excuse to use some of those new assets. Speaking of which, I've just decided to delete a couple of the existing buildings around here because I found that it was like a weird mix of the types of architecture. So I thought, we'll just put a couple of the newer versions, the newer buildings in this area, so that it shows that the whole area's, somewhat of the same affluent living standards. This is also like a good spot for, a wealthier neighborhood, because we are close to the university, we're close to the downtown and the harbor, and we're also somewhat out of the city too. So it's just this like beautiful location. So I'd imagine a lot of affluent people would live in this area. And like I said in the last episode, wouldn't it be cool if we had like a DLC that sort of gave us a little bit more control of the types of people who lived in the areas of your city, just creating that bit more character. Yeah, who knows, we'll see what happens with City Skylines too. Not that that's coming out at any time soon. I'm just hoping. And then to finish things off, I just wanted to fill in a couple of the gaps, not going to as much detail in these areas. Something that I do in a lot of the commercial and like office-based areas is I just drag a parking lot and just like drag it underneath the buildings, and then I just put the actual parking spaces in more random locations, where cars would actually be able to park, not on the actual buildings. And it's so easy and it's so effective. So yeah, let me know if you end up using it, because I think it's a really good way of creating a bit more realism. But again, this area is pretty undetailed. But guys, we are pretty much wrapping up this episode. A bit of a fast one, but it's a midweek quick episode, me putting together. This weekend, I think, I don't know what I'm going to do this weekend. We'll wait and see. I'm recording this the week before, so who knows what I end up doing for this weekend's episode. But guys, thank you so much for watching this one. Much appreciated. I want to give a special shout out to some of my patrons like Holly Softy, Alec Williams, and Clayton Hawk for your support on Patreon. And guys, thank you all so much for watching. Much appreciated. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.